All right, and we're back. So excited. We have such a good episode today. Emma, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Priscilla, Lauren. I'm really happy to be here and chat to you both.
Well, we're so excited to dive into your story and learn everything about where you've been, where you're going, and the Pilates revolution that is going on around the world. But as we get started, of course, we like to throw it all the way back to the beginning of your career story and understand from your perspective, where did all of this really get started? Where were the seeds planted?
I didn't ever think Emma coming out of high school, going into university, did not think that she would be a business owner and be where I am today. I thought I would go into the corporate world and I would climb the corporate ladder, and I'd be the breadwinner and I'd wear my suits and heels and rock around the city. That was sort of my aspirations at the time. And I went to uni and I did a commerce degree in marketing and HR, and started in an accounting firm, but in consulting, in management consulting. So that did give me a really great foundation in terms of a breadth of skills across sectors in a very short period of time. So at the time I was dating my now husband, Ben, and we're in business together. So he was always doing the calcs. This is how many hours you're doing, and this is your hourly rate. You could be doing better. So this sort of thing. And talked me into joining the business, which at the time was a gym. And I thought, all right, well, we'll give it a go. And we always said, if it's something that doesn't work for our relationship, then I'll walk away and I'll go back into corporate life, but let's give it a go. So pretty quickly realized that wasn't a very easy thing to do once you're in the thick of business life. Anyway, but yeah, fast forward 10 years later, we had 6 gyms and a 2-year-old, and I was not loving, I think, becoming a mum. I just wasn't, I think it became more important to me that I was passionate about what I was doing, and I wasn't feeling that in the gyms. And so I had said to Ben, right, well, either we're looking for a way of me out of the business, or we sell and we do something different. Um, and we were fortunate enough to have the opportunity to sell the gyms. And that was after a year of COVID as well. So, there's more to that story, of course. But yes, I had gone through a journey with Pilates, through trying to get pregnant with my son, and knew that was my passion. And so there was a number of factors that came out of COVID and running gyms through COVID and having reformer studios in those gyms, that sort of the idea of your reformer started to birth. And so when we had the opportunity to have some free space and have some capital behind us to invest in a new business, that was very clear to me that that's where we wanted to go. So, 3.5 years later now, we're now a global brand, which is insane to even think. But yeah, loving it. And that I guess correlation now between passion and business is really set my soul on fire, definitely.
Wow, I love that. I love that you were able to really steer the direction of really both of your businesses and really what you were doing just by your passion. I'm
Mm.
curious, as you went from kind of almost the opposite of what a lot of people do, which is I think kind of has the aspiration to be the entrepreneur and then, ends up at corporate, you kind of did it reversed. As you started into kind of entrepreneurship with your husband, what were some of your initial first roles and responsibilities as you got started? And how
Yeah.
has that transformed over the years?
Great question. I very I'm a very type A personality. I'm very capable. I'm very efficient. So one of my challenges is trying not to do everything and do all. So along the journey, we've had to learn, what are my strengths and how do I shape my role based around those strengths? And one of my strengths is I'm a people person. I'm a good people manager. I am empathetic, and I'm able to find a great balance between, most of the time, of course, not 100% of the time, but most of the time, between business and the people element. And so with that HR background that I have, I've always leaned into that side of the business, and culture is a really big thing for us and always at the forefront of our mind. And I think that if you talk to anyone in our business now in your reformer, they would say that culture is one of the reasons they're here, one of the reasons we feel we're successful. And so that, but I've built and I've learned and I've evolved in that role. And that's just one of my roles, but in that role in particular, over time, like, I'm a better manager now as being a mum than I was before I had kids. I understand people's worlds better, and I can give more flexibility and more support in different ways than I did prior. I definitely look back when I was, a manager before that and thought, oh gosh, Em, you weren't very flexible in that manner. You probably didn't respond the best way in that situation. So that's one thing, leaning into those strengths. And then I guess just constantly looking at when businesses change, and as a business owner, sometimes you recognize gaps and you just got to jump in and you just got to get it done, right? So then I think that's what I love about it. Actually, I really thrive on learning, and learning on the job, and constantly being open to feedback, and being very solution orientated. So all right, if we have a challenge and we have an issue, it's like, oh, well, what's the solution and how do we get there? So it's been very much about filling those gaps and learning the things you don't need. And then in this business, we took a different approach in that we wanted to surround ourselves with people who are amazing people in the areas that we are not so amazing as well. So I think it's also about recognizing and being honest to yourself around where your gaps are, and where your weaknesses are, and letting someone else do it, and have that responsibility, and then share the wins with them along the way.
100%. I think it's so fascinating that maybe some of the decisions that you've made in order to get you to where you are now with your reformer being such a global brand. Going back to the decision, or whenever you were in the space of being a new mom, and having the gyms and those being successful, it seems, to not just decide to add in maybe an element of something like your reformer, and add that on top of, and maybe you lead that, versus deciding to completely sell your other business and start something from scratch. Why was that the case, or what was part of your decision making in that, if somebody maybe is in that particular situation too?
Yeah, I mean, I think as part, like, as a successful business recognizes a problem that needs to be solved in the market at that point in time. And I think that was on the journey to look for selling the gyms. I guess it allowed us that space to kind of look at other options and other things that we could do. So we didn't initially set out to sell the clubs. So we were in conversations. We actually looked um, at getting investors, essentially, to grow our brands, our gyms. So our gyms were performing really well. We had boutique brands within our clubs. One of those brands was a wellness studio. So we had reformer and yoga and meditation in those sort of areas of the club. So we really wanted to be able to offer that boutique studio offering all under the one roof, under an affordable membership. So that was our model, and we knew that was a modern model that was successful and was going to be sustainable. So we were sort of looking, let's look at an investor, and let's instead of keeping on raising capital ourselves and putting, every entrepreneur knows that your house is on the line, everything's on the line, the bank wants security from everything personally. So, how can we get out of that rat race and try to grow this brand. But through that, I guess, investigation came an acquisition offer. And so it was sort of that decision that we went, okay, let's consider this. And then lockdown happened. And we're in Melbourne, in Australia. We were the most locked down city, I think, or up there in the world. Lucky us. So, and fitness industry was not a very fortunate industry with lockdown. So there wasn't a lot we could do. So we rented out all our reformers. I was running live Zoom classes for our members, and it was really popular. And I knew, couple that with being a mum with a young family, that how hard it was to get out to classes, even if lockdown wasn't the case. And so I was like, why, this is something, there's something here. Why isn't reformer more accessible? We know people love reformer. We know the benefits of it. But it can be expensive. It can be challenging to get to class, etc. So the idea was bubbling whilst this was all happening. So I am a bit of a spiritual believer in that, when you're on the right path, things tend to fall into place if you're open to the right, signs and so forth. And so it really was one of those kind of scenarios where, the opportunity was there and the signs were showing, okay, we've got we've got something, let's sort of lean in here and let's follow this path. This is feeling the right path for us. So yeah, that's sort of how that evolved. It was, we were going to take some time off. we went for a holiday to the beach for a week and then went, this is weird. We don't have any emails coming in. What's going on? I don't like this. And I think within a month we had the wheels in motion for Euroformer. I was pregnant with our youngest, so we literally launched Euroformer 6 weeks after we had Noah. So yeah, I mean, there's no such thing as slowing down when you're onto something and you're excited. And we were back into lockdown again as well when that timing happened. So for us, we knew that it was the right time to go live for the business as well in that little market that we were in at the time.
Wow, so incredible. And sounds like such a spurt of growth kind of all at once. How were you able to really manage that, especially being a new mom, and being in lockdown with so many uncertainties and so many external things happening? How were you able to kind of balance that of being a new mom and kind of birthing this new business at the same time?
Control the controllables. Noah came to work with me a lot. So I think it's actually, when they're so little, it's actually easier than when they're a little bit older and they need, more time and stimulation and so forth. So it definitely got harder as he got older to juggle it all. But we partnered with some amazing agencies we had a very small team. We worked with someone in our previous business in the gyms she's an asset, Sam, and we knew we wanted her on this pathway with us. So we brought her on even before the business sort of really had launched, and she's been with us from the start. So she's integral, very similar skill set to me. So, when I could really lean in with her in terms of operational and so forth, when I needed to be with Noah, and she was incredibly supportive of that. But, one step at a time. We started small. We didn't go global day one. We were just Victoria. So we were in our local area. It was the market we knew, the people we knew, and very clear things around what each individual person in the business was doing. And there was 4 of us. So, and like I said, we partnered with a digital performance agency. We partnered with external video agency. So I was more focused on that Pilates piece of it. We really wanted to make sure that the offering was that studio experience in your home. So we wanted to have a library of classes that they would be able to do. So I was, there doing the filming with our instructor team, getting that ready. So yeah, like I said, it's always been about, we're great team collaboration, but everyone has their specific responsibilities and they do them 120%.
Absolutely. I think that is so clear to such an important step to have that clarity of where you're going to, and so everybody knows where you're going as well, your whole team. Whenever you were putting together the business plan, or maybe you didn't put together a business plan for your reformer, why did you decide that having an app with a physical product, so putting the technology together with it, was going to be so essential? Was it because of competitor research? Was it because of what you were hearing from customers, or was it from your own intuition?
I mean, there's a couple of aspects to this question. So yes, we did have a business plan, but when we had a business plan, it was financial forecasting and financial modeling. So really looking at the numbers, and that then derives what the goals and the timeline that you're trying to achieve those things before you can then go to the next expansion or next diversification or whatever it is that you're trying to work towards. So that was very important, and we had that right at the start, and continue to use that modeling. The In terms of the app, it was really important to us. So our mission is to make reformer Pilates more accessible. So we didn't, and think because of our background in gyms, that customer interaction, the community engagement elements embedded in us and really important. It's a core value for us. So it was really important that we had this community, and we had people, even though we sell hardware, being the reformers, we didn't want it to be a transactional once off type of relationship with our customers. We wanted them to feel part of the Your Reformer community. So the app forms part of that. It means that people are actually using the product. It means that they're getting the benefit. Ultimately, I've got a personal attachment to Reformer because I know that it contributed to me finally being able to fall pregnant. But that's one benefit. There's a number of benefits that Reformer, consistent Pilates practice, can provide. Reformer is our wheelhouse, and I can speak to that too. But Pilates in general provides a long list of benefits to a really broad range of people, demographics. So, we loved that it was inclusive. So that's the other thing. The app doesn't just have a very narrow offering of classes. We partner with health professionals to provide very specific programs depending on if you're injured, or if you're pre and postnatal, or you're menopausal, or things like that. But then we've also got other ranges of classes to kind of cater for all of the different types of people, where they are in their life, active aging, for example. So it was important for us to be that inclusive space. But then if you look at it from a business perspective, in terms of a business model, the robustness of having a subscription model as well as a retail transaction model was important to us from a sustainability and performance perspective. So, that comes into it too. And I think we've got a rental offering as well, which we've had from day one. So you can rent reformers. And again, that is a subscription-based model. So it just supports cash flow and supports trends and future planning as well.
Yeah, I think being able to pair the app with the reformers is really how you create community around it as well, and keep people really engaged and motivated. So as you were going from just that local community, your local base, to really scaling to this global massive company, what did that rollout kind of look like? Can you walk us through that, and maybe some learning lessons that you have learned along the way of that journey?
Sure. So we always wanted to, our mission is to make reformer Pilates more accessible. So by nature, that accessibility can extend across different borders. Naturally, we know the Australian market, so that was our first step. So we started in Melbourne, in Vic. We then quickly went to New South Wales. We were shipping across Australia at the time. But when we talk about going to different markets, generally what we talk about is being able to have our team on the ground, being able to offer rental within that metro catchment, and being able to offer the additional service that we do by having our own delivery team members there to do that kind of white glove service that's important to us. So that's what we mean by going. We then extend to certain cities or different regions. So we were across Australia within a year, maybe just a little bit more. I think it was just over a year, which was huge, and that was really exciting. We then 6 months later went over to New Zealand and expanded to New Zealand, and then knew that the US was a market that we had in our sights. We did take a significant amount of time to kind of look at different ways we wanted to grow. Distribution was an option that we looked at. A far easier option, absolutely, to find distribution partners in different regions. And that may still be an option for us in other areas. But when it came down to it and learnings from our expansion, we knew that we had to be able to provide, firstly, the full business model, not just sort of one aspect of it. So we wanted to be able to provide rental and sales of Reformer. That was important. And to be able to do that, the rental piece is the complex piece. So we really need to be able to have our team on the ground to be able to deliver, collect, maintain, etc. And then we really wanted to also make sure that we can deliver on the customer service element of our business, which if you read any of our reviews, most of them will call out our team in terms of the service that we provide and that relationship that we have with our customer, which is so important. So that meant that it was going to take us longer to get there. So, there's so much more complexity when you have your feet on the ground, you have a presence in that country, you have to have an entity in that country, you have to operate as a business in that country, not from an international border. So it's been a hell of a ride so far. It's the better part of the year. Look, the whole team, we announced it at the start of the year. We do a conference every year, a strategy conference with our team. And it was a big part of that conference to plan for getting to the US, and everyone has sort of had their part to play in getting us firstly to the launch, and then continuing to build from there. We didn't think the differences would be as great as they are. So the complexities in tax and just things that you don't even really think about. I think it's kind of had a little bit of a laughing motto along the way, which is learn as you play. And there's been a lot of learn as you play. And as long as we have the attitude of, well, okay, if we make a mistake, we own it, and then we we don't shy away from it. And we've always had that ethos in the business. And then it's just about, okay, let's get together and work out what we do about it and how do we move forward. So, and I think that's really comforting for people I think that allows us also to take risks, calculated risks, of course, but take risks that others may not, when you know that you've got, I guess, a supportive backing to do so. So yeah, I mean, we're still learning. We're only 2 months in from the official launch in the States. We are in SoCal at the moment in terms of where our feet is on the ground with our team. We've got a warehouse and a team in Anaheim who are fantastic. But we're shipping across the country. So it's exciting. We have been embraced so far, which is great. But, it's a big country. There are a lot of people. The way that you advertise and market has its nuances. It's different, even though there's the same platforms, but the weighting of each is different. So yeah, it's been really interesting, and I think it makes us stronger in Australia too, from the learnings we have there. So yeah, we're loving the journey along the way. The time difference is a little bit of a challenge. I'm not going to lie about that. Waking up to 50 emails at 5 a.m. every morning is is tricky. It's playing catch up, but we signed up for it. So
but you almost kind of start to feel like you have like your 24/7 operation. Now you hit on something that I was actually curious about because being a direct to consumer brand, your marketing strategies obviously are vitally important into getting the awareness and you being the one really creating that. I know I know it feels maybe like you're just getting started here in the US, but I'm sure y'all have had numerous conversations about what strategies you are going to employ here versus ones that you have used elsewhere, or which ones maybe are going to be the same. What have been some of your strategies that you've been leaning on or thinking about as you enter this market?
yeah. I mean, we have a very clear brand message, brand promise, I guess style, all of that, and that doesn't change. Like that is at the crux of who we are and our brand personality. So it's more just going, okay, well, what are the tweaks? What's the, different colloquialisms in each place? For example, we've worked with some experts over there, some consultants who have different backgrounds, different skill sets that have been advising us along the way, and they've been fantastic. And there's things that, even using the word bed. So in Australia, we call reformers beds all the time. And when we first started saying that word to the consultants and the team over in the States, I said, you have to stop. You can't say bed. It's not going to work. So using the word reformer we've had to train ourselves, and that took a little time. And so that's just a little example of it. It seems so small, but you can lose someone in your copy if you are not talking in the same, sort of language, essentially, even though we're all talking English. So, there was our launch campaign, and we use inclusions, the word inclusions, when we talk about value adds or gifts that come with your purchase and so forth. And the digital agencies or the digital consultants that we're working with said, you've got to change that. No one understands what inclusions means. That's not
Yeah, I don't know what that means. That's so fascinating.
so, and by making that tweak, we saw uplift in our ads. So, it's things like that. So I think it's important, firstly, that it's just being open-minded to being able to change. Just because it's working here does not mean it will work there or elsewhere. And so being open-minded and being nimble and agile to being able to change it quickly. So that's important. So, and then, partnering with the right people so that they can give us the right advice along the way so that we can learn as fast as possible. The actual marketing strategy is not different. It's just the marketing mix and the weighting into where, display ads, programmatic, that type of thing is not the same in Australia. It's not as much leaned on here as it is over there, for example. So that's something that we've had to learn about. Influencer marketing, which is big everywhere, is huge in the States. So, that's a strategy we're still working out, who our people are that we want to align with and so forth. So, but you meet some amazing people through that process as well. I think it's just, like I said, being open-minded, being agile.
Love that. Yeah, it's so true. And I think it's so interesting that you have the same overall marketing kind of focus, but I think it makes so much sense because there's so much overlap. And as your teams are kind of building out, even though there are so many different nuances, like you were saying, and so many differences, having kind of the overlap of still that direction you're going in. Mm-hmm. So as you're continuing to build the team and scale and continue that mission, how have you been able to keep a global team on the same track? You mentioned a once a year conference. What is
Mm-hmm.
kind of the cadence to you meeting with your different teams, and how does everybody stay in sync as you are keeping everybody moving forward?
And that's the hardest part. Well, we already had that challenge before going global, in a sense that we're, as an ecom business, it's a very hybrid type working model anyway. People are working remote. We've got offices across Australia. So we were already very aware of how do we keep people engaged? How do we keep them informed of what's going on? Keep that communication. And you kind of to and fro. Sometimes you end up in a space where you go, we have too many meetings. Why do we have all of these meetings? We need to scale back. Otherwise, no one's getting anything done. And to then, okay, now we need a little bit of extra update communication. So we do a annual strategy conference, and then it's always been very clear that it's always been important that we have a clear plan, objective, and vision, and that is communicated across the entire company. So we do monthly company-wide updates that everyone is invited to, and we hear from myself and Ben and each department head and giving an update of what's going on. We talk about how we're tracking to the objective, so it is, constantly reiterated. We talk about what's coming up, reflecting on performance in that past month. So that's an important piece. It's recorded. If you can't attend it, anyone can watch it. We have, we use SharePoint. So we've got a hub spot where that's put and up key updates, org chart. I do a little video update from me once a week that goes in there just with things that are going on. So they're just a couple of ways that we kind of keep people engaged and knowing what they're working on. Of course, performance reviews is a really important way to keep people aligned as well to, you've got your overarching business plan and goal, and then everyone is contributing to that. So each individual has their own goals. That's all important and relatable. So as long as it's all tied into that and the company values are the kind of the two key things that we do in those, and we do that twice a year. But then it's also just recognizing, for example, I literally just had a meeting with our leadership team this week and said, I'm booking a time next week. We need a realignment. This year's been so focused. Naturally, it had to be on opening in the States. Now we're open. I'm feeling like we're a little bit fuzzy on what the core focus is right now. So I said, let's do a realignment. Our strategy conference isn't until March next year. Let's focus on and what we need to communicate and what we're all kind of working towards over the next 5 months. Let's get some more clarity over that. And so that's what we're doing next week. So, you can still get derailed in that time. 12 months is a long time to kind of stay in that solid focus. And yeah, it's just about being intuitive to what we're feeling the team needs, listening. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And that can be so challenging sometimes to be able to, I think, as a CEO, as a leader, as a founder, you can see the bigger vision, but being able to to zoom back into the day to day of like, okay, what needs to happen today to get us there? I found can sometimes be a challenging switch up to constantly be in. As you look at your big vision and how you're making those decisions on a day to day, what does that big vision for your reformer look like for you?
I mean, global domination. No.
Amen.
You know what? We've just never been great at having a 10-year plan, for example. I think in the modern world, how fast things change and how adaptable we want to be, we just don't want to set anything in stone. So in our strategy conference, for example, we work back. We do a 5-year vision, we do a 3-year vision, and then we do a 12-month kind of plan. So the team are all working to what that 5-year vision is, but it's fuzzy around the edges. It can be shaped. Next year when we do our conference, it might be different. off the back of what we've done now. But, we know there's the crux of it, which is we want a more connected community. We want to be incorporating some AI somehow in, so it's like, let's just kind of dream big. We don't know how we're going to get there yet, but that's all about, to your point, Priscilla, like you break it down and well, what am I doing today that sort of gets us there? So we look at the core pillars, and, we go, well, we've got a plan for a new prototype, for example, for a new reformer, and that people can get involved in. And it's very style orientated, because that's something that we really love and inspired by. So, things like that we work on. But ultimately, we knew that the next 12 to 24 months was going to be huge, and that kind of needed to be the core focus. So I think it does depend on what's in that plan, first and foremost. So yeah, look, it's a team vision. It's not just my vision. So ultimately, make Pilates more accessible. We want to try and do that as far and wide as we can, more and more people using it. We've got a sustainability piece that we're working on, around knowing that, we are a newer business, but we're going to be coming up to the point that maybe some people, especially when we come out with different colorways, which we do, it's suddenly like, oh, well, I think I want that color now. I didn't know that was going to be an option. Now, what do I do with my reformer? So, coming up with something around that secondhand piece and how we can kind of do our part there is something that we're working on, and I don't know will be a key thing in our conference next year. So, yes, there's lots happening.
I love that. I love the global domination vision. I love all the kind of little sneak peeks you've given us kind of along the way, leading you there. But we always like to kind of wrap up our interviews and ask, what is your next big move? What are you focused on next that you can share with us?
Okay, yeah, software. Do you know what software is? The big kind of focus for us at the moment. We're working with an agency building out a new version of our home app, which we're really excited with. And there's going to be, I'm not going to divulge it, but something really exciting that comes with that when that launches, and that'll be around middle of next year. And then we're also working on the further development of the software that's part of our Kiosk Pro, which is our commercial side of the business, the B2B software that you're using lots of studios. And now, this on-demand 24/7 reformer is becoming a really big thing, particularly in Australia. And I see trends the same over in the States. So working on that and really kind of delivering an amazing product on top of what we already have in that space now. So they're the two main focuses, and some exciting new colorways and styles and things like that with accessories, challenges and so forth that all comes as sort of standard business as usual for your reformer.
That's so exciting. It feels like a lot of amazing big things on the horizon working towards global domination. If you were looking back as we close out here and maybe giving yourself some advice that you could have used, let's just say 5 years ago, not knowing where you were going to be today, or maybe having a vision of where you were going to be today. Or maybe somebody else is listening to this and they're like, wow, that sounds so inspiring, but no way, I don't think that could be me. Any like clear advice that you could give to people?
One of my girlfriends actually gave me this advice the other day, or this suggestion the other day. She said, 2025 Emma needs to be open to receiving help. So I think, as much as I think that I have let go and I am, allowing people to do their part and so forth, as I think you just have to be able to lean on people for you to be able to achieve some great things, because you can get in you can get in your own way. So I think it's, be clear, find that passion And that is what will help get you through hard times, because if you're truly passionate about what you're doing, it's all worth it. You'll want to still bounce out of bed despite having some challenging days or going through a period that is you're not enjoying as much, or so forth. So those two things would be my advice. Are you passionate about it? And be open to support and help.
I love that.
Yeah.
Such good knowledge nuggets to kind of leave us with.
Yeah, I'll receive that as well. I'll receive that as well. Emma, thank you so much for joining us today, bright and early from Australia. And we're so appreciative. I know that everybody listening is going to get a lot of value out of this episode. So thank you so much. And until then, we'll see you next time.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.